My name is Addison Rhodes, and I learned a long time ago that steel only looks unbreakable. What matters is how it's welded back together after heat and pressure. I was still carrying that smell-hot metal, burnt rubber, when I turned onto Sycamore Lane and saw my life lined up in black trash bags along the curb. A hoodie dangled from a torn seam like a flag of surrender. My tool case lay open, bits scattered, the arc welder nose down in the grass. Next to the mailbox, my monitor leaned naked against the post, catching the last orange scrape of sunset. On the porch, my mother held her phone at chest height, her smile too bright and aimed at anyone but me. Lacey, her daughter, kept up a commentary to a live audience I couldn't see. Cole paced like he owned the concrete. No one said my name. The car door clicked behind me, and the street felt crowded neighbors standing as fence posts. I didn't ask why. I didn't plead. I lifted a book with a bent spine, and brushed off the dirt like it could still be saved. "Addison," my mother called, as if we were practicing lines. "This isn't personal. Adults pay rent." I met the camera's glassy eye, not hers. "Then make it official," I said, and the words tasted clean. Cole kicked a bag and smirked. Keys flashed through the air and hit my shoulder with a deliberate thud. From somewhere, a dog barked. From nowhere, the last part of me that wanted a scene went quiet. I loaded what I could and shut the trunk gently, like closing a door that wouldn't open again. "Enjoy the show," I thought. "You'll hear from me soon." The eggs were still warm when I came upstairs that morning, balanced perfectly between over-easy and done just enough. My mom had already set out the plate, toast cut diagonally, hot sauce in a tiny dish on the side like I liked it in high school. For a second, I let myself think it meant something. "I'll only be gone 2 days," I said, sliding into the chair. "Maintenance contract in Harper Ridge, nothing fancy. But I start the new job Monday, full-time, union pay, benefits." She nodded, stirring her coffee slowly. Her eyes didn't leave the phone beside her, even when I smiled. "That's great, honey," she murmured, but it sounded like a script she didn't rehearse. "I'll finally be able to pay off what I owe you," I added, trying to keep my voice steady. She hummed again, typed something, and tilted the screen away like it was instinct. I focused on my eggs. "Don't make it weird," I told myself. "She let you stay when you needed it." She didn't have to. The silence dragged like bad weld sloppy. Uneven. Doomed to fail. I cleared my plate and rinsed it carefully. No thank you. No comment on the job. Just the clink of ceramic and the quiet sigh of someone waiting for you to leave. At the door, she kissed my cheek too quickly and gave me a side hug like we were performing for a family photo that no one would ever frame. "Drive safe," she said. "I will." Outside, the morning sun stretched low and gold across the lawn. I tossed my duffel into the trunk, the weight of the welding gear comforting in its solid thud. I glanced up once and caught the curtain shift in the upstairs window. Just enough to know she was watching. Just enough to pretend she wasn't. I started the engine and pulled away, not knowing that, in exactly 31 hours, I'd be back here earlier than planned, exhausted, smelling like burnt metal, and staring at my life gutted and dumped on the lawn like trash. But in that moment, I believed in new starts. I believed in clean slates, and I believed she still cared enough to leave the porch light on when I got home. I pulled up at 6:27 p.m., 4 hours earlier than anyone expected. The job had wrapped fast, and I'd skipped dinner just to get back to my own bed. The streets were quiet, golden light flickering through the trees as I turned onto the driveway. Then I hit the brakes. At first, I thought there'd been a trash pickup mishap, but no, the bags were too familiar. My boots, my sketchbooks, the navy blue jacket I wore at every job site, sleeve dangling out of a split bag like a dislocated limb. My arc welder, scuffed and coated in sawdust, lay crooked near the sidewalk. The monitor I'd bought with overtime money stood unwrapped and half-tilted against the mailbox. And there they were, my family, Mom was on the porch with her phone raised, like she was filming a home renovation. Lacey had her back slightly turned, arms stretched in selfie mode, giving her followers a panoramic shot of the wreckage. Cole leaned against the railing, arms crossed, like he was guarding a crime scene he'd helped stage. I got out of the car, slowly. Lacey's voice carried across the yard before I even shut the door. And here she is, folks back from another business trip. Still $8,000 in the hole, still pretending rent is optional. I didn't speak. My legs moved on their own, one step, then another, until I stood in front of my duffel, ripped open at the seam. I bent down, picked up a welding glove with a small burn mark on the thumb, and held it in my hand for a long second. The leather was stiff, familiar. Cole kicked a bag near me, scattering books into the dirt. "Finally," he muttered. "The freeloader's out for good." I turned to Mom. "Is this a joke?" She didn't even blink. "Addison Rhodes, 30, living rent-free in our basement for 6 months. This is your eviction notice, public and permanent." The neighbors didn't move. Mr. Alden across the street paused mid-sprinkler. Mrs. Hanley held her dog tighter. No one spoke. I didn't cry, didn't shout. I picked up each piece of my life with surgical quiet, like handling something fragile no one else saw value in. Not one of them helped, and not one of them looked away. I drove without direction for a while, letting the familiar turns of our neighborhood blur into each other. My hands still smelled like burnt insulation and steel shavings. At one point, I found myself parked in front of a closed grocery store, headlights off, engine still running. The silence inside the car was thick enough to choke on. I didn't go back to a motel or my old co-worker's place. I drove straight to Tara's apartment. Her porch light was on, as always. She didn't ask questions when she opened the door, just looked at my face and stepped aside. She made tea without a word, while I dropped my bag near the couch like a refugee. It wasn't until I pulled out the black file pouch from the side pocket that I remembered the envelope. Thick, cream-colored. My name scrawled in my grandfather Eldon's blunt, shaky handwriting. No return address. Just a memory of him slipping it into my hands in the hospice parking lot months ago. "Only open it when you're ready," he'd said. Not before. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but everything inside me felt hollowed out, and that envelope felt heavier than it should have. I sat down at Tara's tiny dining table, the steam from the tea curling like questions I wasn't prepared to answer. My fingers hesitated on the flap. Then I tore it open clean. Inside a letter, several notarized documents, a business card with raised gold print, Malcolm Reed, estate and trust law. My name appeared again, typed this time, next to a percentage, 40% of the family home, 50% of a lakefront cabin in Montana, 35% of the auto shop on Haven Street where Rick's business was headquartered. I blinked. The pages trembled slightly in my hands, but it wasn't sadness. It was something sharper, something solid. The letter from Eldon was short. "Addison, if you're reading this, they did what I feared. I couldn't protect you in life, so I'm doing it now. You don't owe them silence. You don't owe them guilt. This is for when they forget your worth." I exhaled slowly. I wasn't broken. I was documented. The next morning, I called the number on the card. Malcolm Reed's assistant hesitated when I introduced myself until I mentioned Eldon's name. Then her tone shifted. She offered me a last-minute afternoon slot. No small favor in a firm like theirs. Reed's office sat in a stone building near the courthouse mahogany trim. Quiet lighting, the kind of place where words were weighed before they were spoken. He recognized me immediately. "You used to come with Eldon," he said, smiling faintly. "Always had grease on your elbows and questions about the vending machine." I returned the smile. "Barely." He reviewed the documents with a precision that made me feel less alone. When he finally looked up, his expression had flattened into something unreadable, but his voice was calm and sharp. "It's all valid," he said. "Your grandfather finalized these months before he passed. These percentages can't be revoked without your consent, and if anyone's been collecting income, or using the properties for collateral, well, that opens a different conversation. I blinked. So, what happens now? That depends on what you want, he said. What I wanted, I didn't even know what I needed. A place to sleep, a moment to breathe. But what I said was, I want to proceed. He nodded once. Then let's begin. That night, the messages started. Lacey, hey, hope you're not mad. The stream wasn't meant to embarrass you. It was just content. Algorithms. You know, Rick, don't be dramatic. We can talk like adults. My mother didn't text. She called once. I let it ring out. By morning, Malcolm had sent out formal notice to the family's legal counsel. Any future communication was to go through his office. He CC'd the family's attorney and included the documentation confirming my ownership. I didn't reply to anyone. I turned off read receipts, let the silence stretch, let them guess where I stood now. Because for the first time, I wasn't waiting to be welcomed back. I wasn't asking for space. I had the paperwork, and this time, I was the one drawing the line. For the first time in years, their noise didn't reach me. Not really. While my phone buzzed itself into exhaustion, missed calls, long texts, guilt-laced voicemails I spent the morning organizing what I'd managed to salvage. Tara had cleared a shelf for me. I stacked the few books that hadn't been ruined by the lawn or the trash bags. My welding gloves went next to my boots. The dented monitor leaned by the desk. Even damaged, it looked more dignified than the people who'd tried to humiliate me. That afternoon, Malcolm called again. We've reviewed income records, he said, his voice steady as ever. Your parents and Cole have been collecting rent from both the lake cabin and the shop for the last 3 years. None of it disclosed to you. I closed my eyes. How much? Just over $50,000, he said. Your share wasn't acknowledged in any form. Technically, that's misrepresentation. Technically, like it was an oversight. We both knew better. By the end of the day, certified letters had gone out to their legal rep outlining what I was owed, and the legal implications if they didn't comply. Malcolm also contacted the banks involved in Rick's business loans. If they'd approved financing without all stakeholders' signatures, they had exposure too. The silence that followed wasn't the usual kind. It wasn't cold or dismissive. It was tactical, calculating. 3 days later, Cole showed up at my new job. I was just clocking out for lunch when I saw him, leaning against the driver's side of my car, arms folded, phone in hand like he was ready to film if I so much as breathed wrong. I didn't flinch, didn't even slow down. Addison, he said, all casual menace. You got a minute? I kept my keys in my grip. You're trespassing. We need to talk. I met his eyes dead on. Step away from my car. He didn't move. But a coworker called my name from the loading dock. Cole hesitated. You want to play the lawyer game? He said, stepping back. Fine. But it won't end how you think. I raised my phone. This is harassment. Leave. And this time, he listened. They came on a Thursday evening, just after the sun dipped behind the rooftops. The knock wasn't polite, it was sharp, impatient, like the kind you use when you think the person inside owes you something. I didn't get up right away. Instead, I tapped my phone screen, pulled up the security cam feed, and watched them cluster outside the front door like actors waiting for their cue. My mother stood closest, clutching a tissue that didn't seem to be doing much. Rick loomed behind her, with his arms crossed and his jaw clenched. Cole leaned against the railing like he was bored. And Lacey, of course, stood slightly off to the side, glancing between the door and her phone screen, already angling for the best shot. Addison, my mother called, voice cracking just enough. Please, honey, we just want to talk. Rick stepped closer. Open the door. You're acting like a child. I let the pause stretch long enough for them to hear their own breath. Then I said, clear and even. All communication goes through Malcolm Reed. You've been informed? Silence again. Thicker this time. You don't have to do this. Mom tried. We can fix it. Just the 5 of us. No lawyers. From the screen. I saw Lacey hide her phone behind her back, like a child caught stealing candy. But her eyes gave her away, still hungry for footage. "I'm not discussing anything without legal counsel present," I replied. "If you remain on the property, I'll notify building security." Rick's face darkened. "So that's it? You're hiding behind paperwork now. You told me I wasn't your daughter." I said, flat, "I'm just honoring your words." Lacey looked down. Cole shifted. My mother wiped at eyes that weren't wet. No one had anything else to say. They stood there for another minute, maybe hoping I'd cave. I didn't. When they left, it wasn't with shouts or slamming doors. It was quiet, measured, dangerous. The kind of silence people keep when they're planning their next move. Inside, I opened my laptop. An email from Malcolm had just arrived. Subject line: settlement proposal, initial draft. 2 days later, the offer came through. Their lawyer emailed Malcolm with a proposal they'd sign over full ownership of the lake cabin to me if I agreed to drop any claims on the unpaid rent and forgo future income from the commercial property. No apology, no admission, just to trade a piece of wood and water for silence. Malcolm didn't even blink. "We reject," he replied, "and we restate our original terms." He CC'd me. I read the message 3 times and felt nothing but clarity. They thought I could be bought with a symbol, a hand-me-down peace offering. But I wasn't interested in symbolism. I wanted the truth documented, and I wanted it respected. The next morning, I met Malcolm in person. "I want a formal payment plan," I told him. "For the back rent, I want a third-party firm to manage all future property income, and I want a written admission of financial misrepresentation signed by all 4 of them." He tapped his pen on the desk, then nodded once. "That's what we'll demand." The longer the negotiations dragged on, the more the cracks began to show. Lacey lost over 5,000 followers in a week. Someone from high school had recognized me in her original eviction livestream and started posting receipts, old screenshots, family photos, side-by-side videos showing what really happened. Sponsors backed out. The video vanished from her profile, but by then it had been copied and reshared across too many corners of the internet. Rick's business took a hit. 2, a client pulled out of a restoration project after seeing a viral clip. Then one of the banks began reviewing loan documentation. When the trust surfaced, their lawyer had no choice but to disclose the ownership structure. My mother stopped calling. Cole sent one furious email, which Malcolm forwarded to me with a single word: logged. By the time their attorney replied, everything about their tone had changed. It was no longer sharp or demanding, it was cautious, measured. They agreed to all of it: monthly payments, neutral oversight, a written, signed acknowledgement of what they'd withheld. I read the final version of the document twice before signing it. At the bottom, just above my name, I added one sentence by hand: "Truth isn't betrayal. It's what remains when the performance ends." And then I sent it back. The apartment was small, barely enough space for a desk, a bed, and a shelf. But it was mine. The lease had my name on it. The rent came from my own paycheck, earned at a job that left my hands sore and my back tired, but gave me peace no one could repossess. 2 days after I moved in, an envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a check, the first installment of the back rent they owed me. Paper clipped to it was a folded note, written in my mother's careful cursive. "We hope we can put this behind us and be a family again. Love. Mom." I stared at it for a long time, not because it moved me, but because of how much it didn't. There was no apology, no ownership, just hope that I'd forget what it cost me to finally be left alone. I placed the check in the drawer. I didn't reply. That night, while unpacking the last box, I found my old external hard drive. I plugged it in and scrolled through forgotten files until one folder caught my eye: Grandpa Eldon. I clicked play. "Hey, kiddo, if you're hearing this, I'm probably gone. But I want you to remember something. Some people only love you when they can use you. And when you stop letting them, they call it betrayal. Let them. You just keep being you. That's enough. I leaned back. Let his voice fill the room. No more yelling, no more silences sharpened into weapons, just peace, and a place of my own.